For 50 long years, humans were banned from fighting in the galaxy. The Council had made that law after the last war. They said humans were too dangerous, too wild, too unpredictable. And for 50 years, that law stayed in place. But now the galaxy was losing. The enemy, known only as the Varnock, was winning battle after battle. Their ships were stronger. Their weapons were faster. And worst of all, they never showed mercy. Inside the Grand Council Hall, tension filled the air. Representatives from over 20 alien species sat around a circular table, each one looking more worried than the other. The Supreme Speaker, a tall insectoid named Carol, stood up. "The situation is critical," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "We have lost 3 more systems this week. The Varnock are at our gates." A deep voice spoke from the shadows. It belonged to General Tharuan, a bear-like warrior from the planet Gore. "Then it is time," he said. "Time to bring back the only warriors who ever scared the Varnock." Gasps echoed across the chamber. "You cannot be serious," shouted Ralex, a blue-skinned diplomat from the peaceful world of Sarah. "You want to use humans again?" "They are too violent," another counselor had added. "Last time, they broke every rule of war." Tharuan growled. "And they won. That's what matters now." Carell raised a hand. The human ban was not made lightly. They used weapons no one understood. They took risks no one else would take. Entire planets burned in their battles. "But they also saved us," Tharuan replied. "If we had not called them then, the war would have been lost." Carol turned to the central screen. A hologram of the galaxy appeared, red lights marking the fallen worlds. The enemy was getting closer to the Council's own system. "We are out of time," she said. "This vote must be taken now." One by one, the Council members stood to cast their votes. Relics, "No. We must find another way." Tharuan, "Yes, let them fight." Others followed, "Yes. No. No. Yes. Yes. No." It came down to the final vote. A quiet elder from the water world of Nethros. She stood slowly. "The humans frighten me," she said, her voice soft. "But the Varnock, they frighten me more. I vote yes." Silence. Then a loud sound echoed. The sound of the vote passing. The ban was lifted. Carol looked directly at the Council. "So be it. Prepare the transmission." Across the stars on the quiet Earth, the skies were calm. Birds flew, oceans moved, and the people lived in peace. Most of humanity had forgotten about the Council, about the war, about their place in the galaxy. But far beneath the surface, deep in military bunkers, the old forces slept. Inside a frozen chamber, a soldier lay in stasis. His name was Commander Ryan Hale, the last human to fight in the Great War. Around him, thousands more waited in silence. A soft voice came through the speaker above his pod. "Commander Hale, the ban has been lifted. The Council calls for Earth's aid once more." His eyes opened. Somewhere in the stars, Varnock fleets moved without fear. They had forgotten the humans. But the galaxy was about to remember. Deep under the Earth, machines hummed to life for the first time in 50 years. The order of stasis was over. Cold mist filled the dark chamber as the cryopods opened one by one. Inside each pod lay a soldier, men and women trained for a kind of war the galaxy thought it would never see again. Commander Ryan Hale blinked against the bright light. His last memory was a battlefield full of fire. Now he was waking up in silence. A voice spoke through the chamber speakers, calm, clear, and robotic. "Commander Hale, you are activated. The Council has lifted the ban. Deployment begins in 6 hours." Ryan sat up. His body was stiff but strong. Years of sleep hadn't weakened him. His training ran deep in his bones. He looked around. More pods were opening. Old friends, old warriors, each one chosen not for kindness, but for results. Colonel Lena Cross stepped out of her pod, stretching like a lion waking from a nap. "So," she said, grinning, "they finally remembered us." Ryan nodded. "The wolves are back." Far above, in Earth Orbit Command, General Marcus Reed stared at the Council's transmission. It was short. "Deploy your warriors. The galaxy needs them." He sighed. "Of course they need us. They'd always need us when it's too late." A young officer nearby looked nervous. "Sir, are they ready?" Reed smiled darkly. They were born ready. On the planet Varnock Prime, enemy leaders sat in their war chamber, watching holos of their victories. They laughed as another Alliance ship exploded. "The Council is weak," one of them hissed. "Soon they will beg for surrender." Another Varnock, smaller but wiser, frowned. "I heard something," he said. "An old name, from the last war." The others turned. They said, "Humans have returned." Silence fell. One of the Varnock generals stood up fast. "Impossible. The humans were banned." "Not anymore," the wise one said. "The wolves are waking." Back on Earth, the old warships were rising from underground hangars. Dust flew into the sky as giant engines powered up. These ships weren't like the Alliance ones. They weren't clean or beautiful. They were brutal. Sharp. Angry. Ready. Ryan Hale stood on the command deck of the ISS Retribution. Around him, officers were taking positions, running systems, checking weapons. "Status report," he said. "Power at full. Weapons charged. Navigation locked on Council sector," an officer replied. Ryan looked out the window. Stars were waiting. He pressed a button on the console. "To all units, the ban is over. No more waiting. No more silence. They called us back for a reason. Let's remind them why they feared us." Across space, thousands of ships responded. Wolves ready. In the Council Hall, the alien leaders watched the feed from Earth. They saw the warships, the soldiers, the dark steel and glowing red lights. The humans looked like something from an old nightmare. Carl, the speaker, whispered, "I hope we made the right choice." General Tharoon smiled proudly. "You did. The galaxy just forgot what real war looks like." Hours later, human fleets exited warp near a captured system. Varnock ships were there, not expecting trouble. Commander Hale watched the enemy fleet. "Begin silent approach," he said. "No warnings. No mercy." His ship disappeared from view, cloaked. Seconds later, the first Varnock ship exploded. Then another. Then 5 more. By the time the rest noticed, it was too late. No prisoners. No escape. Just silence. Back on Earth, General Reed received the report. Enemy base destroyed. No losses. He smiled. "They wanted wolves," he said. "Now they'll see what wolves do." The human fleet moved like shadows through space. No warning. No signals. Just silence. The Varnock base floated near a dead star, its defenses relaxed. It had been years since anyone had dared to attack them here. Inside the base, enemy soldiers laughed and played games. They didn't even wear their armor. Why would they? The war was easy now. The Alliance was weak. Victory felt close. Then everything changed. At 200 hours, local time, the lights flickered, then died. Darkness. In the control room, a Varnock officer tapped the console. "Power failure." "No," said another, checking the sensors. "Something is here." But nothing shows up on the radar. Outside, just beyond their scanners, human ships floated, cloaked, silent, ready. Commander Ryan Hale stood on the bridge of the Retribution. His face was calm, but his voice was ice. Phase 1. Begin. In an instant, missiles launched, silent, invisible until impact. The Varnock's outer defense rings exploded. Alarms screamed across the base. Red lights flashed. But it was already too late. Inside the base, panic took over. "They've breached Sector 4. Who? What species? No one knows. They're not broadcasting." Then a whisper spread. "It's the humans." Soldiers froze. One screamed, "I thought they were banned." Another whispered, "They were." On the surface of the base, metal doors melted open as human ground troops entered. They didn't speak. They didn't shout. They moved fast, precise, like machines made for war. Colonel Lena Cross led the first assault team. She moved through the corridors like a ghost, her rifle glowing blue. "Room clear," she said after each hall. "Move to the next." Varnock soldiers tried to fight back, but their shots missed. Their formations fell apart. They weren't used to enemies that changed tactics every second. Humans didn't follow rules. They used traps, ambushes, tricks the other species never even imagined. "Flank left. Drop gas. Flash in 3, 2, 1. Go," Lena ordered. It was over in minutes. From above, Ryan watched it all. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. This wasn't a game. This was a message. 1 hour later, the Varnock base was completely under human control. No prisoners had been taken. No help arrived. The base had been wiped from existence. The human fleet left without a sound, just as they had arrived. In the Alliance Council, the news arrived fast. Carol stood in shock as the report played on the holoscreen. Enemy base. Destroyed in 11 minutes. No casualties on human side. One council member whispered, "How?" Tharun smiled proudly. "That's how humans fight. Fast, silent, final." Ralix looked pale. "This is not war. It's extermination." Carol replied, "This is survival." Across Varnock territory, fear spread like fire. Enemy commanders began holding emergency meetings. They watched the footage again and again. They didn't even talk, one said. Another replied, they didn't need to. A third, older commander stood. "I fought humans once," he said. "I was young. I watched one squad take down an army. They didn't win with strength. They won with fear." He pointed to the screen. "They're back. The monsters are back." On Earth, people gathered around news broadcasts for the first time in years. Many were confused. Some were afraid. But many cheered. Their soldiers were heroes once more. Back on the Retribution, Ryan Hale stood in the command room, looking out into the stars. Lena entered, tossing her helmet onto the table. One base down, more to go. Ryan didn't respond for a moment. Then he said quietly, "They'll come for us harder next time." She smirked. "Good. I like it when they fight back." He turned to her. "We're not here to play games. We're here to end this." She nodded. "Let's remind them who taught this galaxy how to fight." The stars outside flickered. And the wolves moved again. The Varnock War Council sat in silence. For the first time in years, they were afraid. Footage played again on the main screen. Human soldiers clearing a Varnock base in just 11 minutes. No survivors, no mercy, no mistakes. "They don't fight like us," one general said. "They don't even fight like the other species." "They fight to end the war," another replied, "not to survive it." In a hidden human warship, Commander Ryan Hale studied a new battlefield, a Varnock-controlled mining world. No major defenses, but important enough to strike. His voice was cold but clear. "We hit them where they feel safe. We don't just destroy weapons, we break their will." Colonel Lena Cross leaned over the hologram. "Standard assault?" Ryan shook his head. "No, something new. We confuse them." The next attack didn't come from the front. It came from underground. Human engineers had landed quietly the night before. They set charges under Varnock bunkers, under fuel lines, under command towers. When the main fleet arrived, they didn't fire. They waited. And then, at the exact second, the whole enemy base collapsed from below. Before the Varnock could even scream, the humans were already inside. No shots fired, just silence, and then control. Back in the council hall, alien leaders watched the replay. Carol frowned. "How do we even predict them?" General Tharun looked proud. "You don't. That's why they win." Relic stood. We didn't invite humans back to change the rules of war. Carol turned slowly. They aren't changing the rules. They are reminding us. War has no rules. The next week, 4 more enemy worlds fell. Each attack was different. Sometimes it was fast and loud. Sometimes it was silent and slow. Sometimes humans let prisoners go to confuse the next space. The Varnock tried to adjust, but every time they thought they understood humans, they were wrong. At a secret enemy meeting, the top Varnock commander slammed his fist on the table. Our battle systems can't predict them. Our strategies don't work. One young officer whispered, "Why? What makes them different?" The old general replied, "Because they think like predators, not soldiers." On the battlefield, human soldiers used traps, drones, and deception. They faked retreats, then struck from the side. They used old tech to trick new scanners. They even sent false transmissions to confuse the Varnock. Commander Hale led one such mission. He sent a signal, "Help us, we are injured." When the Varnock ship arrived to finish them, it flew right into an ambush. The human ships were never broken. They just pretended to be. The galaxy started calling them a new name, the Wolves. Stories spread, how they moved in shadows, how they fought with no fear, how they always won. Some enemy crews refused to fight. Some surrendered before the battle even began. Fear was spreading faster than fire. But not everyone was cheering. In the Alliance, some leaders were worried. "They're winning," said Carol. "But what happens when the war ends?" "What do you mean?" asked Tharuan. Carol narrowed her eyes. "We brought them back to stop the enemy. But what if we can't stop them?" Back on Earth, General Marcus Reed watched the reports. Victory after victory. He turned to a younger officer. "Mark my words," he said. "The galaxy will ask for another ban one day, but not because we lost control." "Then why?" the officer asked. Reed stared at the stars. "Because we reminded them what control really looks like." In deep space, Ryan Hale stood alone on the deck of the Retribution, looking at the stars. Lena Cross stepped beside him. More winds, more planets freed. He didn't smile. "They fear us now," he said quietly. "Soon, even our allies will." She looked at him. "Do you care?" He shook his head. "I don't fight for fear. I fight so no one ever thinks about attacking Earth again." She nodded. "Then we keep going, until the job's done." Outside, the stars watched quietly, and the wolves moved on. The Varnock had numbers. They had ships, weapons, planets. But none of it mattered anymore. Because now they had fear. It moved faster than any fleet, stronger than any weapon. Stories of the humans, the wolves, spread across systems like wildfire. Ships surrendered without a fight. Whole bases ran before the humans even arrived. And in some corners of the galaxy, the Varnock did something they never thought they would do. They hid. On the ISS Retribution, Commander Ryan Hale stood before a full holographic map. Red lights marked enemy systems. One by one, they were going dark. Lena Cross stepped into the war room. "Another outpost just surrendered," she said. "No resistance, no traps, just fear." Ryan didn't look away from the map. "They're learning." She tilted her head. "Learning to fight?" "No," he said. "Learning to run." On the Varnock homeworld, panic ruled the war chambers. "We cannot hold the outer systems," one general shouted. "They are not just soldiers." Another cried. "They are nightmares in armor. They never sleep. They never stop. They don't even talk." A silence followed. Then the High Commander of the Varnock rose. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. "I fought in the old war," he said. "I saw humans break empires. I saw them burn entire skies. We cannot beat them the way we beat others." "Then what do we do?" asked one officer. The High Commander's voice was cold. "We strike first. We strike Earth." Back in the Alliance Council, Panic was rising too, but for a different reason. Carl paced the center floor. We brought the humans back to stop the Varnock. But what if we cannot stop the humans? Ralix pointed to the battle records. They've destroyed 5 fleets, 23 bases. We never gave permission for half those strikes. Thorun growled. And would you rather be dead? They're winning. But at what cost? Carol asked. They are turning war into something darker. Silence followed, because deep down no one had an answer. Meanwhile, Earth celebrated. The human media showed brave soldiers, shining ships, and endless victories. But General Marcus Reed knew the truth. He sat alone in a quiet room, reading the latest report. Enemy base destroyed. No resistance. All defenders abandoned post. No survivors. He sighed. Victory had a price, and fear was not always clean. He turned to his assistant. How many enemy troops are surrendering now? Almost 30%, sir. And how many after the humans land? Less than 2%. He closed the report. We've become something they'd rather die than face. On the edge of Varnock space, the human fleet prepared for the next mission. This time, it was a stronghold. Heavily armed, fully alert. No more easy targets. Ryan Hale looked at his crew. This one won't run. This one will fight. Lena Cross smiled. Good. I've missed the challenge. The Retribution jumped into hyperspace, leading the charge. The battle began fast and loud. Missiles screamed through the void. Shields flared. Fighters clashed. For the first time in weeks, the Varnock resisted. They were ready. But so were the humans. Tactics changed mid-battle. Ambushes turned into traps for the enemy. Human ships pretended to retreat, then came back harder. On the ground, Lena's squad used tunnels to strike from below. Ryan's voice echoed through the comms. Push forward. Show them why they fear us. Hours passed. Explosions rocked the base. And then, silence. The Varnock commander stood alone, blood dripping from his arm. He looked up at Lena Cross. You could have taken prisoners. She stared at him. We offered surrender first. He nodded once, and dropped his weapon. When it was over, the council received the report. Another stronghold gone. Carol sat back, her face pale. Ralix whispered, You feel it? Feel what? Tharun asked. Ralix looked at them. They're not just winning. They're becoming something else. Carl closed her eyes and spoke softly. They're becoming the thing the galaxy will fear for 1,000 years. That night, in the silence of space, Ryan Hale watched the stars. Lena stood beside him. They're changing, she said. He nodded. Because of us. Do you ever wonder, she asked, what happens after the war? Ryan didn't answer. He just looked out at the galaxy. And whispered, I don't think the war will ever end. Not now. The stars were no longer silent. War echoed across systems. Worlds burned. Fleets vanished. But wherever the flames rose, humans were already there. On the edge of the galaxy, something terrible stirred. The Varnock had grown desperate. They had activated their final weapon. The core swarm, machines built long ago, machines even the Varnock feared. Not alive, not dead, just pure destruction. They couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be stopped. They were not created to win wars. They were created to end civilizations. The core swarm began its march. One by one, Varnock colonies vanished. Even enemy commanders begged for help. And for the first time in history, the enemy called Earth. On the ISS Retribution, Ryan Hale read the message twice. Requesting aid. Immediate threat. We cannot hold. Please respond. Lena Cross stepped in. You're not seriously considering helping them, right? They're the reason this war started, another officer said. Ryan said nothing. Then he looked up. If we don't stop the core swarm now, They won't just destroy the Varnock. They'll come for everyone. Us too. Silence filled the room. Then Ryan added, "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about survival." The council met that same day. Alien leaders argued for hours. Some wanted to run, some wanted to hide. But Carol stood in the center and raised her voice. "We laughed at humans. We banned them. We feared them." She paused. "But now, they are our only hope." The next day, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen moved together. Ships from every species, even old enemies, and at the front flew the humans, the wolves. When they reached the edge of core swarm space, they saw what fear truly looked like. Planets had been stripped to rock. Space twisted with dark energy. The swarm didn't build. It didn't talk. It just consumed. Ryan Hale stood before the fleet. His message was short. "They think we're monsters. Let's show them what monsters do to worse things." The battle began. At first, the fleet struggled. Weapons failed. Ships exploded. But humans adapted fast. They hacked the swarm's signals. They used chaos as cover. And when the swarm started learning, humans started changing tactics mid-fight. Again, and again, and again. The galaxy watched in awe. The wolves were not just fighting. They were teaching the others how to fight. Lena Cross led ground troops on a dead moon. Her team set traps in dark tunnels, using sound to bait the machines. "Draw them in," she whispered. "Then burn them." Explosions stripped the ground. She didn't blink. In orbit, Ryan Hale made the final move. He ordered 3 ships to break off, fly straight into the core signal, and detonate from inside. He didn't wait for permission. Because sometimes, heroes don't ask. They just act. 3 human pilots gave everything. The swarm core exploded from the inside. All across space, machines froze. Stopped. Fell. Silence returned. Not peaceful silence, but heavy silence. The kind that comes after something terrible is finally over. In the council hall, every species stood as Ryan and Lena entered. No applause, just respect. Carol stepped forward. "You were our last choice." Ryan nodded. "We know." She smiled slightly. "But now you're the reason we're still alive." On Earth, people didn't celebrate with parades. They lit candles. They remembered the ones who never came back. And slowly, the galaxy began to change. Enemies talked. Borders opened. All because the species they had feared most had become the ones they trusted most. Back on the Retribution, Lena stared out at the stars. "Do you think they'll ever stop fearing us?" Ryan sat beside her. "Maybe. Maybe not." She looked over. "And does that bother you?" He smiled for the first time in weeks. "No, because this time, they need us." He stood. "We were the last choice. Now we're the only hope." And with that, the wolves disappeared into space again. Not for war, but to keep the stars safe. For everyone.